Welcome to Money on Your Mind. Today's show is presented to you by Bonnie Automotive for all of your automotive needs at 640 Boston Ave in Ball Square in Somerville, and Al Fresco Restaurant, the finest in Italian and Mediterranean food at 382 Highland Ave, right in Davis Square, Somerville. My name is Belinda Fuchs. I'm a CPA, wealth coach, and president of OwnYourMoney.com. At OwnYourMoney.com, we help people to understand and improve their financial situation. They become motivated to action by clearing their emotional and mindset blocks around money. The result? People make more money, save more money, and stress less about their money. I think of myself like a combination financial therapist and business coach. We understand that money is on your mind, and we're happy that you've tuned in today to learn how to survive and thrive in these turbulent times. Today's topic is surviving the credit crunch, and I'm pleased to welcome today to our show, Amy Perry.
Thank you.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for joining us. And what I'd like to do is to give you a little bit of information about Amy. Amy Perry is the Regional Director of Education with Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Southern New England. As a professional money motivator, can certainly relate to that, her primary passion is empowering and motivating people to get fiscal and take control of their finances. Working the front lines and following her inner passion of helping individuals, she has conducted over 400 financial workshops. It's very impressive, reaching an audience of almost 9,000 consumers in 2.5 years. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Belinda.
So why don't you start out by what you mean by getting fiscal?
Well, you know what's crazy? Statistically, 90% of us have never had any formal financial education in the school system. So if you think back in your high school days, did you take any classes on balancing a checkbook or how to buy a house or even how credit cards work? I mean, did you have anything?
No, and I mean, I'm a CPA, right? So I went through a lot more education even, and I never got anything really on how to manage my finances, so I can totally relate to what you're saying.
I mean, the same with me. I was a business major in college. I studied finance, and through high school I didn't have anything. I mean, there was this college track or the business track, and if you went through the business track, you learned these life skills, but if you were in the college prep classes, there were no life skills classes for you. And even going on to college in studying finance, I mean, we didn't take anything about personal finance. So it's not prevalent that people have had formal financial education. So when I say people need to get fiscal, they really need to empower themselves and they need to go out and seek information. And that's why, you know, we're here today. I mean, teaching people how to do that and take those steps.
Exactly. So no wonder I like you so much. So, because I think we're both motivated by a similar thing to be able to really empower people with their finances.
Exactly.
And in some ways, I almost feel like I end up letting people off the hook a little bit by recognizing that they may have never been taught. So instead of sitting in that judgment and shame, why don't you just start today? Have this be your wake-up call, this show, you know, hearing from us to then take control and move forward with what you can be doing.
And I think the good news is that people are really feeling the pinch. I mean, the unemployment rate, it's depressing. The unemployment rate is high. I mean, credit card debt is rising. People are really feeling the pinch. So I think this is a really good time for people to wake up and say, I really need to do something about my debt. I really need to do something about my situation. So they just don't know what to do.
Right, and it's funny because how you had started that sentence of, you know, it's a good time. It doesn't really feel like a good time to a lot of people, but I think you hit on a very important point in terms of there's really an upside to this downturn because it's encouraging people to notice their finances in a whole nother way. It's almost like people got so lax when they always had enough money and now incomes have softened, expenses have gone up, or they learned to live within these higher means and they're feeling the squeeze. And the good news is that it's starting to encourage people to do something about it. And particularly, as we're going to talk about today, in the credit markets. You know, today's topic is called surviving the credit crunch, right? And a lot of people are feeling this crunch right now because they're feeling like they're, it's almost like a frustration, a confusion, because their interest rates may be going up. And maybe they just kept paying their bills on time. There hasn't really been anything they've done. Or their credit lines have been decreased. And we're starting to hear more stories about that. Can you talk about what's happening in the current markets, how it's affecting people? And then we can talk about what people can do after that.
Sure. Well, exactly what's happening to us is, we're feeling this squeeze. Banks and financial services companies are also feeling this squeeze. So they're looking at all of their customer base and they're saying, how can I make my business more profitable? So they are reducing credit lines for customers, and we feel that. I mean, if you have a credit card with a $10,000 credit limit, you feel like you have access to that full line. And the credit card company may say, you know what, we're going to pull in $5,000 of that. Now you only have access to $5,000 remaining. So they're trying to watch their books and be profitable as well and not keep all this risk out there. So because it's a global economy and the businesses are being affected, it affects us. Now, what can we do? This is really important, Belinda. When people get their monthly credit card statements, they have to read them. I ask people all the time, do you know the interest rates on your credit cards? Majority of people, they have no idea. And what can blow your mind as well, when it comes to interest rates, there's fixed and variable. They're both variable. Variable interest rates are tied to an index. Fixed interest rates, people may think, I don't need to know my interest rate, it's fixed. That just means it's not tied to an index, and it's something subject to be changed by the credit card company. So when you get the statements, you have to watch those interest rates to make sure, you're not you think it's maybe around 10 or 12%, and make sure it's not 30 or 40% interest rate. So there are things that you can do. Monitor your statements every month, and also watch that credit line that you mentioned earlier. There's not a lot you can do if the bank, say, or the credit card issuing company is going to reduce that credit limit. There's not a lot you can do, but knowing about it, you can actually move out of that card. So being informed and reviewing all of your information. And sometimes it comes down to the credit card company may give you notice, and generally they're doing this. They're giving you notice, and it will say the next billing cycle your interest rate will go up, or the next billing cycle your credit limit will go down. So you would be getting something in the mail in most cases. Read that. Be empowered with that information. That's really the first step. But when it comes to these things happening, your credit limit being reduced, these actions can affect your credit score down the line.
Absolutely.
So people really need to be on the lookout of this and make sure, they're protecting themselves.
So I know that they affect their credit score, right? Because we know that there's a portion is related to how much available a line you have, right? So what can people do when they get that letter that says your credit line is being reduced or your interest rate is going up? Because there is actually something that they can do. They don't just have to sit there and take it, because it's a little bit tough too when you say they can stop using the card, but again, they have to be careful not to totally cancel that card, because that could also have an impact on them.
Right.
So let's talk about what they can do and what they have to be careful not to do.
Well, there's not much in regards to rights that consumers have in this arena, and that's something that is changing as we speak. In the small print of the agreement, of that credit card agreement, in most cases it's going to say we have the right to do X, Y, and Z at any time. Increase your interest rate, decrease your credit line. So when you sign that contract, you're consenting to the fact that you're not in control of this agreement and it can change. So it is completely legal that financial institutions are doing this. So what you can do, you could change to a different card. I mean, you don't necessarily, it's not something that is going to help you.
You can change your current spending in terms of, like, you wouldn't necessarily want to close the card if you're not paying annual fee anyway.
No, you can leave the card open and open another card possibly to
spend on.
If the interest rate went up, obviously you'd want to get out of that agreement as soon as possible. You don't have to close that account. You just would transfer the balance over to a new card. Some things that you might want to look at, you probably don't have that initial agreement with the credit card company. You could ask them for the disclosure that says that they have the right to decrease that credit line or increase that interest rate. Asking for the disclosure would be helpful. It lets you know that it's something that you agreed upon initially. But this is something that, credit card debt is money that you've borrowed and you're trying to pay it back.